Hello, my name's Amy. I'm an indie author of fantasy and science fiction, and today I'm going to be talking about my plans for NaNoWriMo 2020. I don't know if I say this every year, but I can't believe NaNoWriMo has come round again. 2020 has been a particularly strange year, but here we are again, and we are talking about our Preptober and NaNoWriMo plans. Now, I didn't actually do NaNoWriMo last year. I made some kind of Nano Rebel vlogs, but I was actually editing a book. That book, Cybernation, came out in January of this year, and I have since moved on to a couple of other projects, which we will get to in a minute, because they are pertinent to this year's Nano. To be honest, when I was making my plans for the second half of this year, I didn't really think I was actually going to do NaNoWriMo. As of October, I am in the middle of editing the last book in my Steampunk Adventure series. This book has been a long time coming, so now that I'm getting towards the end, I really want to push through and finish it. And I always knew I was likely to be editing it in about October and November, which of course meant no NaNoWriMo again. One major thing has shaken up my publishing schedule for the end of this year though. Basically, between the US presidential election and then Christmas, the last couple of months of 2020 are not going to be a great time to publish a book. So even if I wrap up the edits of this steampunk book and get it completely finished, I'm probably not going to publish it until early next year. So I realised once we got into October that there wasn't a huge amount of rush to finish it. I am going to be spending the rest of October trying to get as far through this edit as possible. I've done a lot of the major developmental work, and I'd like to get as many of the smaller edits and continuity fixes done by the end of this month. That would really be a huge weight off my mind to have that finished before NaNoWriMo. So honestly, that is what my Preptober has been about, just trying to get other things finished. It's not the traditional Preptober, I know. I'm not doing character development and plotting and outlining and filling in workbooks. To be honest, I just have too many other projects up in the air. But that actually is where we get into my NaNoWriMo plans, because I have a lot of unfinished stories. Cybernation, that I mentioned earlier, is the first book in a trilogy. I spent a lot of this summer working on the second book, which is called Echo State. I've written about 75 to 80,000 words, and I think it will be about 100,000 when it's finished, because that's what the first book came in at. Now, I actually put that draft aside to edit the steampunk book, but I really do want to get it finished because it's going to be my next release after the steampunk, sometime in the middle of 2021. So what I'm thinking of doing is finishing that draft in NaNoWriMo. It's still relatively fresh in my mind. To get myself back into the story, all I would really need to do is read the last few chapters and look over my outline. I've also got notes that take me from the 80,000 word mark right up to the end. So finishing those last 20,000 words shouldn't be too difficult, and I think that would be a great way to get into NaNoWriMo. But 20,000 words to finish that draft would not win NaNoWriMo. Now, I've got to be honest, I am not too concerned whether I actually hit 50k in November. I know I am perfectly capable of doing it. I do 50k in other months when I've got a lot of drafting in progress. So it's not the challenge for me it once was. But I really would like to stick to the spirit of NaNoWriMo if I can this year, and try and get to 50,000 words. So we've got the 20,000 for Echo State. What is the rest going to be? The problem is I have too many ideas. First of all, I have got a short story that I started a few months ago called The Bone Roads. I don't know if I even wrote the first 1,000 words of it, but I did outline quite a lot of the story. I'd really like to get that finished because I'm thinking of it being a kind of Christmas present for my newsletter subscribers. But that obviously means finishing the draft as soon as possible, so that might be the next thing after Echo State. That would probably bring me up to somewhere in the region of 25,000 words, so there is still more to add on to win Nano. I have then got two options really. The sensible option is to write the first draft of an urban fantasy, which is the second book in a series. The first book is not edited yet and it certainly hasn't been released, but I'm really hoping to release the first 3 books in the series together. I'm probably also going to edit the first 3 books back to back. So I'd really like to draft the second book. That's probably going to come in at around 40,000 words, so that would easily fill up the rest of November. But there is also a wildcard option. A few weeks ago, I started a 0 draft of a kind of dark academia fantasy serial. It's heavily influenced by both The Magicians and Fringe, which are both great TV shows if you haven't seen them. And in a very unusual move for me, I did actually start writing it as a 0 draft. Now, I don't know what other writers think of as a 0 draft. For me, I was very much doing an experiment. I was writing out everything that happened in quite considerable detail, certainly much more detail than I'd put into an outline. But I was not putting in lines of dialogue or all the description. Like I said, this is an experiment. I don't know if it's going to work for me because I suspect that the 0 draft and the first draft are actually going to have similar numbers of words. So I would actually end up writing the book twice. My theory is though that I would have very little editing to do to the official first draft. So that's why I wanted to try it. A serial seemed like a really good option too, because I could just write the first episode, which was going to be about 15,000 words, and see whether this 0 and first drafting process worked for me. So that is my other option for NaNoWriMo. Honestly, it's not really the best one. The problem is, I just really want to write this story. It's very much in my head at the moment, which is why I started it a few weeks ago, and I've just really enjoyed diving into it. But apart from it being a serial, I have no real plans for it. I don't know if it's likely to get published anytime soon. It's not on any of my schedules for the next couple of years. So, like I said, it's a wild card. If I get into the second half of November and really just want something incredibly fun with no expectations attached, I might write this serial. But honestly, to keep up with my publishing goals, I would be much better to write that urban fantasy. And that is about as far as I have planned. Talking through these very vague ideas for NaNoWriMo has honestly made me a bit nervous. In previous years, when I've tried to jump around between projects in Nano, I have run out of steam and kind of got no more than 25,000 words in the month. So I am aware that doing it this way is really quite dangerous. It's much easier to keep up momentum throughout the month if you just write one story. But I do not have a single story with 50,000 words left in it, waiting for me to write. So I'm forced into this slightly precarious position. As I've talked about before though, all of these options, apart from the dark academia, do really play into my overall publishing plans for the next couple of years. So whichever I pick, there's definite merit to them. My only fear is that I will not be able to keep up my motivation and get to the end of NaNoWriMo. But there will of course be everyone else taking part out there to spur me on. All the vlogs and the Instagram posts and the forums and everyone chatting about Nano is really very motivating. And that's exactly the reason I want to take part. So please let me know down in the comments what your plans for Nano are. I hope yours are a bit more substantial than mine. Because whilst I won't say I'm setting myself up for failure, I'm definitely not giving myself the easiest task this November. Of course, I will be vlogging the experience in weekly vlogs as I've done before, so please stay tuned for those. I hope you are all getting really excited for NaNoWriMo, even given the slightly strange state of the world right now. Until we get to NaNoWriMo, keep writing everyone, and keep preparing, and I'll see you next time.